Before we begin, if you enjoy calm, thoughtful content about female psychology, emotional awareness, and relationships, consider subscribing to the channel and liking this video. It quietly supports this work and helps it reach people who may need it. Now, let's begin. There is a moment in many relationships that feels confusing, almost invisible. Nothing dramatic happens. No argument, no clear conflict, no explanation. And yet, suddenly, she pulls away. Her messages become shorter. Her presence feels distant. The emotional warmth that once felt natural now feels restrained, measured, cautious. For many people, this moment triggers anxiety, overthinking, and a desperate search for answers. But what if this distance isn't random? What if it's not impulsive, cold, or careless? In female psychology, emotional withdrawal often has a deeper internal logic, one that rarely gets explained out loud. When a woman pulls away without explaining, it is rarely about losing interest overnight. More often, it's about an internal shift that began long before the distance became visible. A quiet process of emotional evaluation, self-protection, and reassessment. Understanding this process requires slowing down, listening beneath the surface, and recognizing patterns that are subtle but deeply meaningful. From the outside, it can look like confusion. From the inside, it often feels like survival. As we go deeper into this topic, you'll begin to see why silence can be louder than words, why emotional distance is often a form of communication, and why trying to chase clarity too aggressively can sometimes push it even further away. When a woman pulls away without explaining, it is almost never impulsive. It doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't appear without reason. Before the silence, before the emotional distance, before the quiet withdrawal, there is a long internal process, invisible, unspoken, and often ignored by the person standing next to her. In the beginning, she tried. She tried to communicate, to adapt, to understand. She noticed small changes, made excuses for behaviors that hurt her, convinced herself that time would fix what conversations did not. From the outside, everything still looked normal, but internally, something had already started to shift. Female psychology is deeply emotional and reflective. Women tend to process feelings internally long before expressing them. When a woman begins to feel emotionally unsafe, unheard, or unseen, she rarely reacts with immediate confrontation. Instead, she observes. She reflects. She feels deeply. And slowly, she starts asking herself a dangerous question. Is this still worth the emotional cost? This is the first stage of emotional withdrawal, silent questioning. She realizes that she is often the one initiating difficult conversations, the one trying to repair emotional distance, the one carrying the emotional responsibility of the relationship. Over time, this creates emotional fatigue. Not anger, not resentment, fatigue. Sometimes she does speak up, at first gently, indirectly, hoping the other person will notice. When nothing changes, she becomes clearer. When clarity still leads nowhere, something breaks internally, not loudly, not dramatically, but permanently. This is when a woman begins to detach emotionally long before she physically leaves. She is still present, but no longer fully there. Her responses shorten. Her enthusiasm fades. Her emotional availability decreases. Not because she stopped caring, but because caring started to hurt too much. One of the biggest misunderstandings about female psychology is believing that silence means indifference. In reality, silence often means emotional self-protection. Women do not withdraw to punish. They withdraw to survive emotionally. When a woman pulls away without explaining, it's often because explaining no longer feels safe. At some point, she felt that her words were minimized, misunderstood, or dismissed. Over time, she learned something painful, that silence hurts less than being repeatedly unheard. This silence is not meant to get attention. It appears when hope begins to fade. She realizes that continuing to explain herself leads only to disappointment. And slowly, quietly, she starts letting go. From the outside, the shift is confusing. She seems different, colder, distant for no apparent reason. But the reason existed. It just wasn't noticed when it still mattered. Female psychology shows that emotionally mature women do not create chaos when they decide to pull away. They don't argue endlessly. They don't beg. They don't dramatize. They observe, understand. And when they realize that staying means losing themselves, they choose distance. This is the hardest truth to accept. When she pulls away without explaining, there is often nothing left to explain. The decision has already been made internally. The emotional processing has already happened. The grieving began long before the relationship officially changed. Women rarely pull away because they feel nothing. They pull away because they felt too much for too long. They gave, waited, adjusted, and hoped. And when they realize that love is costing them their peace, withdrawal becomes an act of self-respect. At this stage, her calmness can be mistaken for emotional strength or emotional coldness. In reality, it is emotional closure. She is no longer fighting internally. She has accepted what the relationship can and cannot give her. Pressure, at this point, usually backfires. Demands for explanations, emotional confrontations, or sudden urgency tend to push her further away. Not because she wants distance, but because she is protecting the fragile emotional balance she has rebuilt. This emotional withdrawal is also a period of internal rebuilding. She is reconnecting with herself, redefining her boundaries, and restoring emotional clarity. During this time, she is not open to negotiations that require her to abandon her emotional safety. Female psychology teaches that relationships don't truly end when arguments happen. They end when effort disappears. When a woman stops explaining how she feels, it's often because she has already accepted the reality she once hoped would change. This quiet withdrawal can also come from emotional incompatibility, from realizing that no amount of love can compensate for the absence of emotional understanding, and accepting that truth requires immense inner strength. So when she pulls away without explaining, it is rarely an act of cruelty. It is usually the final step in choosing herself after trying everything else. If this resonates with you, you are not alone. Many women have walked this path silently, and many people have only understood it once it was too late. If this video made sense to you, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more content on female psychology, emotional awareness, and relationships. And if you feel comfortable, share in the comments. Have you ever pulled away without explaining, or had someone do it to you? Sometimes silence is not the absence of feeling. It is the sound of emotional clarity.